Awesome. So Tomáš, what does a CTO at Zenbase do during his week? How does your role look like?
Thank you. Also, very interesting question. I will first say that I transitioned from engineering leadership role in companies with 1,000 people to a CTO role in a company of 10 people. So it's a huge difference, and maybe CTO is a fancy name, a too fancy name for what I do, but actually it pretty well describes the variety of my roles, what I need to do. At some level, I need to focus on the very strategical things, strategical decisions together with our founder and with the leadership team. And at the end of the day, I'm the one who goes to database and runs reports, who fixes broken records. And when I have time, I also go and try to write some code and prototype things. So it's a huge variety of things, and I like to think that I'm doing what in a mature company, maybe like Productboard is. You would have 5, 6, 7 different people in different roles. I have to do it as a single person, and it has its pros and cons. The benefits are I don't need to ask anybody for permission, and I just do decisions myself. This is my favorite part about it.
And so you were founded about if I remember correctly, less than a year ago. How many are at the company right now?
We are a company of 10, six software engineers, a team of 6. So that's the team I have. So, and that brings us to the downside of my role, which is there is nobody to delegate to. So I'm constantly juggling my time and juggling my priorities, trying to figure out every day what's the most important and most impactful thing I can do. So that's how my role looks like. It's actually a mix of many different roles, and I'm just trying to figure out how I can help to move the company furthest during the day or week.
Fantastic, thank you. Deani, what about you? I know the answer quite well, at least I hope. But how does a week of an engineering manager at Productboard look like?
That's a good question. Hopefully this won't surprise you too much. As an engineering manager, I think my core responsibility is to ensure that the people that I work directly with is set up for success for whatever task that they have, both in terms of like, do they have everything that they need to do their job well, but also are they growing directionally where they want to grow, and can see meaning in the work that they do, and how this leads to a more fulfilling life both today and also in the future. And then there's like outside or next to people, there's also what we're doing, is it aligned to the organization, working with stakeholders to ensure that we're focusing on that. Similar to Thomas, actually, are we solving the most meaningful problems right now that has the highest amount of leverage? But mostly I also do try and delegate whenever possible to foster growth. And yeah, I think today I work with 2 teams working on different projects. So it's 14 different direct reports, and then a couple of product managers, designers. So yeah, fair amount of time goes into managing people and ensuring that they're set up for success, but then stakeholder management and occasionally focusing on an organizational challenge or 2 here and there.
That's true. Deani was just challenging me today, so I need to write a Slack message. Part of why we invited you is that you have a pretty rich background working at companies of a similar size, but also wildly different. So Tomáš, you worked at Skype at Microsoft later on, which is a lot more than 10 people. Senta has been in different roles as well. If I recall correctly, you were working at HP before as well, which probably works very differently compared to Deloitte.
Like my biggest company was HP with 330,000 people, because I was in the worldwide role. And my smallest company was 27 people. It was the first company when actually not Deloitte, Digital Equipment was founding a subsidiary in Prague, but it's way, way back into history.
And then Deani, before Productboard, he used to work at Slack, which also went from similar growth as Productboard. If you would pick like one difference that one of your previous roles has compared to what you do today, what stands out? Something that's very, maybe if you look at your current role, what's different than any of the roles that you worked before as an engineering leader?
It's a good question. I think there's a lot of things in common, but if you want to talk about something that's different, I think personally to me it's the growth that Slack went through. Like I'm now seeing again here at Productboard. So now I started as an individual contributor at Slack and was a staff engineer there, and saw like how the process is changed and how the company grew and all like what that meant. But now I'm sitting at the other end, or with a different responsibility. Now I'm a part of like those conversations and figuring out what is right for us now, and like going into like what Senta is also teaching at universities. Like here you need to like have a high degree of like critical thinking and figure out what is right for us right now for the problems that we're facing. And that's not something you can just get from reading a book. So it's like now the difference for me is, yeah, now I'm a part of solving the problems that, at least for a certain degree, I saw first solved by others, but now I'm a part of that solution.
I usually frame it differently, that before I just like complain about others not solving them, and now people are complaining about
I left that out personally.
What about you, Tomáš?
I think the biggest difference is types of discussions I have with the team as a leader. In a bigger team, you naturally tend up to have more, especially the more senior you are as a leader, you tend to have more like mentoring style discussions, career focused and personal growth focused. While at the startup at this stage, it's really another question. People don't join startups at this age to have a career ladder lined up and have a promotion discussions every half a year. So it's much more business oriented, much more product oriented, and also much more technical discussions in terms of trade-offs. The bigger the company is, the bigger clients you have. Maybe I've worked recently with in a B2B SaaS company. If you have enterprise clients and you need to follow SOC compliances, and you have a proper security team, you have a legal team, everything goes so much slower, which means you need to make better decisions and have longer discussions with the team about the technical decisions you make. Hello? Yes, works. In Zenbase right now, we are just making 10 decisions a day. At least half of them are wrong, but we just learn from it and we wake up and we continue. So it's a very different style of leadership. Definitely no time for mentoring. We just all learn on the go, especially since we are building a fintech company when none of us has any fintech experience. So there is a ton of learning, and that's what people signed up for. So they don't actually miss the mentoring part, and it's not a complaint that I don't have time for that. It's just the different stage of everybody's career. This is the high growth part.
Actually, how do you, if I just stop there for a brief moment, how do you make sure the people's expectations are aligned before they join? They know what they're signing up for. They know they're not going to get any support and mentoring, and they have to swim on their own. How do you do that? Do you just like, is it the way you screen people, or do you just tell them like upfront?
I actually try to scare them at the interview. When I would be hiring, when I was trying to hire people to Pipedrive, I used definitely different tone and different examples and set up different expectations. Right now, I try to scare them as much as possible, and if they are still interested, then there is a good chance they will survive and will actually enjoy it. It's not about survival; it's about enjoying it. I keep thinking that the reason why people join such an early stage company and such a high growth company is we are not able to pay as much money as a huge companies. We are not able to provide a line of benefits. The reasons why we should join is to learn and have fun as part of it. I personally one of those people who think that you can actually have fun while building a high growth company. You don't need to work in this asshole culture where managers are basically slave drivers, just trying to get as much as possible from employees. So that's what I'm trying to tell them. Like, look, these are the pros, these are the cons. I hope you will choose what's the best for you. But the worst thing to happen for a startup like us is that you spend time onboarding somebody and then they learn too late that it's not for them, and then you basically wasted this time you could have spent on building your product or maybe developing somebody else.
So for me, I see actually two layers of differences. The first layer is if you work for IT company, you feel that you are basically part of the engineering crowd, and you understand those engineers because you are also one of the engineers. So I think the feeling is that you belong to IT company. And then you decide late in the career, as was my case, that you make another step and you go to professional services company, where actually you have people from many, many backgrounds, and sometimes you don't understand them because they are lawyers, for example, or auditors, or financial managers, or psychologists. So, but of course, you can look at it positively from the perspective of colorfulness of the backgrounds. But you need to be careful because those people with like colorful backgrounds, they also come with colorful egos, big egos. So, I think this is what I'm seeing if I compare, and if I compare the sizes of the company. I think there is loneliness, as Tomáš said, on both sides. If you are in a small company, you feel lonely because you can't delegate, and if you are in the headquarters, you feel lonely because you can't delegate up, because there is no one. So I think I would call it like two-tail feeling. Loneliness, but at the same time, big responsibility and big commitment and ownership. So I think that there are advantages on everything.
That's true, and I can definitely relate. I would also like to remind everybody, if you would like to hear anything specific, the questions are open. Feel free, open Slido. We're welcoming everything. You can scan the QR code. You can also just type in the code, so need to take out your cameras. It should be just like you join and post any questions you would like. When it comes to joining a small startup, a large corporation, imagining you're in your early 20s, you're trying to figure out where to start. What is your recommendation to people? What are the trade-offs joining an established large company? What are the trade-offs joining something like Zenbase or perhaps something bigger, maybe like 50 to 100 people? What should you watch out for? When is each of them a good fit? Imagine I'm just fresh out of college, maybe have an internship or one job behind me. How should I decide?
I think if you have a good plan, go to the specialized company, either a startup or specialized company. And if you don't have the plan, if you actually want to test your capabilities, go to a bigger company and test your capabilities on maybe various departments, and then find yourself, and then maybe go into smaller company. This would be my advice.
I've been actually asked these questions multiple times in the past. At Microsoft, I was part of the recruitment team for internship programs. Microsoft has a worldwide internship program, so I was interviewing students from all around Europe, and quite significant part of them actually asking me this question: is it a good idea to join my internship in Microsoft, or should I go to a smaller company? Obviously, at that time, I tell them, join Microsoft. You will have better opportunities to try different kind of jobs, and most importantly, your internship will be structured. I think that's important when you are joining somewhere as a junior, a person without experiences, that you get actually support from your surrounding, that somebody actually can invest the time into supporting you. So I think that's a very important question. I think very few people can live by just learning everything on their own from scratch. So I think that's one very important aspect. But there is also the part. This is the moment where I speak from my own experience, because my first job was as a junior software engineer, joining a small company that did domains and web hosting here in Czech Republic, and I joined this company with 6 developers maybe at the time, and I was doing everything. I was jumping from role to role. I was database administrator, I was Linux server administrator, I was PHP developer, I was front-end developer, if you can speak about it, back in 2001. And I learned everything, and it became natural part of me. So now when software engineers come and tell me I'm a front-end developer, there is always something that kind of makes
Cries inside.
makes me really hard for them to relate with them because I learned all the aspects of the software engineer work. So I would ended up very in very open-ended answer. It depends on the personality of the person and what they want to achieve at that moment. A bigger company can give you definitely more structure. Sometimes you can move between departments. That again depends on the company. So if this is your expectation, definitely ask upfront how easy it is to move within departments in that particular company. Smaller company, make sure that there will be actually somebody able to support you, and if there will be, there is much faster room for growth because of the speed of the company. There's so many things happening every day, so depends on in each individual expectations. That's how I wrap it up.
Yeah, I think you both said most of my thoughts as well. I can just look at my own past and not been exposed to. I've been doing design for a couple of years, native application development for a couple of years, web development for a couple of years, management now for more years than any of the other things, but also data analytics, business intelligence, and much more closer to business as well. And like being able to see the full perspective, like gives you so much that serves you so well, no matter if you're end up being an engineer, or you end up being a designer, you end up doing like something completely different, like having a diverse perspective on how do you approach a problem, and you're able to communicate in different languages depending on the stakeholders that you talk with. Like designers might say one thing, if an engineer would use the exact same words, it means something else, but you don't pick up on those nuances unless you have been exposed to both set of problems within like those realms.
I have a tougher question.
All right.
On same difference, right? So you have the enterprise world and you have startups. Does the pace differ? Do people at startups work more? Is there a difference in what you should be expecting?
In an ideal world, the answer will be that there should be no expectations. I think it's very much a company culture thing. You can find companies out there that will burn people out and go through people for the sake of in quote innovation, and you can find companies that has a much more like higher focus on having a healthy work-life balance and like apply a mindset where it's important to go home, have like activities outside work, and that like again diverse perspective in life. Go do something else will actually pay dividends in the work that you do. So it's not just work. So in an ideal case, I don't think there should be a difference.
So Deani mentioning innovation, how do you feel about that, Senta?
I think it's typically on you, how you want to work, how hard you want to work. And I would go back a little bit to our advice, to people who start their careers. I think there is one crucial piece which we are somehow forgetting, and this is that it's super important who will be actually your team leader on your first job, because I think both Deani and Tomáš were kind of mentioning it, but some people, they just care about themselves, and some of the other team leaders, they care really about those who are joining the company. And I think we live in this kind of connected age, so you can get the information who is actually your team leader, future team leader, check on it, and if he or she is good, I think this is the most important for the beginning.
I think that's very true, and I think there's, at least within management, a quite common saying that people don't quit like companies, they quit leaders, and that's for a very, very good reason.
I have quite strong opinion about this, and I think that it doesn't matter how many hours you invest into your job. It's kind of the energy and effort, and that kind of reflect the company ability to empower people to do their best is very well reflected in that. So if company needs to push you to work long hours to achieve some goal, it may mean that the company in general is very ineffective, and that you cannot achieve as much as you can potentially during regular maybe working hours or during
what I
like
hear
effort.
is like to achieve the same, you might need to spend actually more time, and that's more exhausting than spending
Exactly.
short a few days, but like maybe long long nights.
Yes, I think that's the biggest difference. Well, some big companies nailed it. I don't want to generalize, but I think if you would average it out, bigger companies would tend to have more just synchronization meetings. You need to interact with more people. So before you gather everybody's opinion, before you make a decision together, it just takes more time than in a smaller company when you can make decisions faster and you can move faster.
What are companies that made it, not made it, but that are able to make decisions quickly, don't need so much synchronization, yet they are large? Do you have any examples?
I would think that in the bigger the company is, it would be more about smaller business units. So there would be maybe smaller, innovative businesses. I think I have a good example maybe in Microsoft. When they delivered Microsoft Teams very fast. Microsoft standards, this was really fast product delivery, and they made a lot of shortcuts. And the way how they achieved that, it was very compact business unit. They had a very straightforward goal, and they just got a really high priority as well. So they got support from other business units when they needed it. So this is a very good example of part of a company that remains to be innovative and fast on delivery. But I'm pretty sure that in the rest of the Microsoft, there is a good example of the opposite behavior or opposite results.
I think in the big company also the dependence is whether you actually belong to the division which is strategic in the moment, in the right moment of the right time. Sometimes, you kind of occur in the division which is basically not strategic for the given moment. And then it's the problem. And then my advice is to go into some division which is actually having the leadership support, strategic support, and things like that. So don't stay stuck, but basically move within the company based on your capabilities and based on your willingness to take the ownership.
We were just talking about that today with Tomáš before the meetup, that the market's going to be tough this year. And I think a lot of people are going to realize if they're part of future business or if they're part of the core business units. Yeah.
One last note to the topic before is just, I think there's a clear correlation between like company success and their ability to move fast. So like the amount of like thrashing they have, but also like how aligned are you actually as an organization, and how fast can you make decisions? And like looking at some of the companies that I've been exposed to in the past, I can see like there's a clear class of companies where you have high degree of alignment that allows you to move super fast, and that they tend to be much more successful or grow significantly higher than the ones where you have 80% of the company going right and then like 20% going left, and like then you have 40% canceling each other out. So they're exactly. So like the amount of like internal competition or like different directions you take like definitely correlates to how fast you're going as a company.
So, Deani.
It typically depends on what is actually the compensation scheme, and whether the business units have
on that. How does it affect it?
It's sometimes in big companies, you have actually contradicting KPIs between the different business units. So then, like what to do? Then the strategy basically doesn't work. You would like to be on the strategy, but if you would be on the strategy, you are not fulfilling your KPIs. So then it's a problem.
I think there was actually an interesting historic example from, I think it was Sun Microsystems, that like for a brief period of time decided to do core business metrics, but per business unit. And they were incentivized to like fulfill their own goals. Exactly what you say. So they're like choking themselves as a company rather than like working together. So yeah, definitely. Yeah.
While I have you, Deani, taking one question from the audience, how does your work within the product trio? So assuming a tech lead or an engineering manager, product designer, and a product manager changes as the company grows, what changes about that relationship? Or does that relationship even exist in all the stages?
I think it very much exists, but just like in any high growth company, like the role description changes roughly every 6 months or every phase of growth that you go through. So what was expected of designers 6 months ago is different from today and will be different again in like 6 to 9 months. But the work in general, like the best work is done if there's a very, very tight collaboration, and that happens continuously. So it's not just about figuring out what to do, but also like what comes next, like the execution part, and like keeping a really, really tight feedback loop across product, engineering, and design. That's where the best things gets built. The moment you start to like build things in isolation, or not really have conversations around what are you building, why, and where to go next, then things tend to slow down quite significantly. But yeah, that's the holy grail of product development. That's when it happens together.
Mm-hmm. I think regardless of the stage of a company, you were asking a question, I'm going to talk to you. Regardless of the stage of the company, it's important to maintain or to preserve the function of the trio to get in relationship with the engineering team. Companies today are paying a lot of money to hire a lot of software developers, and it's so easy to waste that resource. I actually hate to use the resource for people, but to waste that capacity with poor product management. So this is, regardless of the size of the company, this is the first question you have to ask. Do we have a functional product trio for each engineering group, for each group of engineers? Do they have enough input? Are they working on the right things? Often companies are complaining that their development capacity is not enough, but when you dig deeper, they are actually producing something. It's just not the thing that they are supposed to be producing because of lack of synchronization between teams and units. So I think with the what's changing with the growth of a company is not the function of the trio, is how do you provide input and prioritization ammunition to this trio from the rest of the company.
I promise these meetups are ad-free formats, but Tomáš just described what Productboard is supposed to solve. So make products that matter together, that's it, right? So if we have one thing we would like to fix and we would like the companies do right, that's exactly what Tomáš described. End of ad.
Just one additional thought. Looking at my own past, I used to first do app development, then later design, and for an agency, and this turned into a pretty good business because when doing designs, I knew exactly how, or could imagine easily how engineers would implement this. So you can imagine, if you know how it's get built on the other side, it's really, really efficient. Like you can build really efficient components for them, and delivery would speed up significantly. That's why, like, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, like being exposed to like general different classes of problems will definitely help. But if you don't have that, that's where you even more need to stay in sync. And if you don't, you end up at the dilemma where it's like, if you're building a house and you're like putting it functionally together with all the bathrooms, living rooms, bedrooms, kitchens that you want, and then you call the architect afterwards like, hey, I built this house down this road, can you come make it look really, really nice? And the answer is like, well, that's not how it works. So you need a high degree of sync all the time.
Got something to add, Senta?
I think I would add to that we are very much now kind of thinking in the box, and we are thinking that all our developers are actually inside. Yeah? But we in Deloitte, we try to think outside of this box, and if we see some niche market, opportunity on the market, we are very quickly coming to get some more resources, either in the academia or in some startups, where actually you can get not only like one or two developers, but you can have even like experienced teams, and you can fix some product need, especially for some client, and then go back to your traditional model.
Sounds good. I have another media question from the audience, and somebody is asking if you feel like the higher in management you are, the more politically correct you need to be. Do you have to adjust your communication? What's your tip of, for example, communicating effectively, not making it about being political or politically correct, but what has been like the biggest productivity improver when it comes to communicating in a larger group of people?
I think I'm very experienced in company politics, and unfortunately, maybe. But what is my advice is if you are new in the team, be careful. Be careful with the communication, be careful with the teams and things like that. And the longer you are in the company, the better you understand, this kind of inner circles, inner lobbies, inner politics. So I think it really depends on how you feel comfortable, and how you are connected mentally to the big bananas of your company.
I think that's exactly right. I have experience from both, like bigger companies, smaller companies. What I have learned is know your audience, know who you are talking to. If you are talking to your close team, over the time you develop some relationship with them. You get drunk several times, and you have common stories. You have common humor. If you are talking to broader company, or common trust, yes. If you are talking to a broader company, to people you don't know, it would be kind of reckless to just shoot jokes around and hope that everybody will understand. And especially that was one thing I learned actually when I moved when I moved to United States with Skype. And Skype was at that moment just acquired by Microsoft. We all went through a very thorough training. One of them, there was a series of training, and one of them was called Standards of Business Conduct Training. And first of all, Microsoft is a big company, very multicultural, very global. And second of all, United States in general are very rigid in terms of how do you approach different cultures, different minorities. And many of mishaps are even... You can go to jail for that, or not to jail necessarily, but you can be prosecuted. You can pay fine. The company can pay fine. So it's very slippery slope. So when I was going through the standard of business conduct training, going through the examples there, I was thinking, oh wow, I'm screwed. We as Czechs are not made for this. We are not ready for this. I have to tone it down a lot to be able to survive. Otherwise, I'm fired within a month. So definitely there's a difference based on country. But I think that's what bigger company gives you as a leader. Understand your team. Right now, even in Prague, even you can have a team of 10 people, and you can have 5 different nationalities. You can have 5 different cultures. So it actually helps to understand that there are different people from different perspectives. Such a basic thing as Christmas. You would just before Christmas, the whole December, everybody talks about Christmas. If you have a Muslim on your team, if you have somebody from different religion, they don't care about Christmas. You don't have to put it in front of their face every day. They may get annoyed. So just understand these little differences. I think it's very different, and this is where experience from bigger company helps, because that's a much bigger audience.
One other aspect of why we brought the 3 of you together here is that you've lived on both sides of the ocean, right? So Tomáš and Senta spent time in Silicon Valley. They've worked in Prague and in other places in Europe. Deani is Danish, so that's how I remember how to pronounce his name, and has lived in Vancouver, worked at Slack, and now lives in the Czech Republic. Deani, like, what is your experience like when Tomáš was talking about the cultural differences in communication, and like with regards to the question asked, what is your experience moving to Prague, given the prior context you have from before? What's your impressions as somebody coming in from the outside?
So after 5.5 years in Vancouver, in Canada, like North America in general has a lot of pleasantries, as I'm sure like most of you are acutely aware of or familiar with. Canada is like with cream and sprinkles on top. They're like really, really nice, and even if you walk in front of someone and you're making a mistake, they will say they are sorry. That's just how Canadians work, and it's really, really nice. But coming, it was quite a culture shock actually for me to move here, and for the first few months to like recalibrate culture-wise, because a good example is like if you give feedback to someone in Vancouver and let's say they write something and it's not really good. Actually, it's pretty terrible. Like what you would say in North America is like, well, it was all right. Here's like the 5 things that I want to change. Do a list of things. What I learned quite quickly, if you tell that to someone here, it means what you say it means, or it means like what you say is exactly what it means. So if it's like it's all right, there's like, oh, it's all right. Here's the 5 things you could do better, but like it was all right. And that's just a similar example of like where the culture differs significantly. And like here, it was actually freeing to like let go of a lot of like the pleasantries, etc. But like there are still a few few things that I still have to get used to. For instance, if I leave a meeting with someone, especially if it's on Zoom, in Vancouver or North America, it would end with, "Oh yeah, let's chat soon, have coffee, go for a walk. Hope you're having a great day." Here it usually ends with, "Bye," and Zoom is off.
Imagine you're working and you joined a company, a multinational corporation or an American company in Prague, and then very often what you hear, oh, I work with Americans or Canadians, they're very politically correct, I have to adjust, or I can't say what I think. How to spin it the other way, how to frame it positively, and how to try to explain it to your teams, what are the differences? And do you have like resources you could point them to? Like how would you like what would you point them to like kind of learn a little bit more about it or how to be effective about it and not just leave it to, oh, I just can't say what I think, which is not the point, right?
No, absolutely not the point. And it's just how you frame different things. And you have to, again, like getting back to what we talked about earlier, you have to understand your audience and also how do they perceive, when you say a certain thing, how do they actually perceive it? And that's where culture and language barriers gets really, really interesting. And that sometimes takes a bit of coaching to get exactly right, especially like, I don't know, for me as well. But it's interesting. I think again the diverse perspective is super, super, super important for companies. And it's just like sometimes it's like the detail is comes in the nuance sometimes, and that's where language gets tricky.
Just got an idea that remote work goes directly against it, like knowing your audience, knowing the people, knowing the nuances. There's so much lost over Zoom calls, and especially when you work in a company that's full remote and you have never seen the people you are working with, this makes it so harder. And kind of for me personally, I know this is very individual, but for me personally, it takes out a lot of the fun part. Basically, your relationship with people became purely professional, and that is very hard to go beyond that. So that's my personal take on whether we should stick to fully remote. I personally can't, and I hate it.
So my personal experience from this kind of US working, when I was promoted to US, I was super happy. Yeah, it was basically a breakthrough in my career. It came very soon. Yeah, so I felt accomplished. And suddenly landed in this team, I felt completely lost because I was the only one from Eastern Europe, but not only Eastern Europe, I was the only one who was actually not local US. And I realized that I actually don't understand people outside of our profession. Yeah, so I didn't understand their sports, their movies, yeah, their kind of entertaining. And I realized that I must understand because otherwise I will be the outsider. So seriously, I started listening to New York radio, Silicon Valley radios, yeah, to understand, yeah, what is happening, yeah, what is happening in politics, what is happening in culture, and I think this is a best practice. I had an insider who was actually Canadian. She was not US. And I was very often here talking to her and taking her understanding where I could do the mistake. And I think it was terrible, maybe like first 6 months. Yeah, I felt really like an outsider. But after these 6 months, yeah, you realize that the human beings understand human beings and that I can actually bring some added value. But those first 6 months, yeah, they were terrible.
I remember that one of my stronger memories or experiences of differences between life in Czech Republic and in the US was actually the confidence, the general confidence level that Americans have compared to Czech people. I actually spent a lot of time hiring here at Skype in Prague. I went through hundreds of interviews. I screened maybe thousands of resumes. So I had my filter. I knew I had my benchmark. I knew when I screened through the resume, I knew what to expect from the person. And how the person would most likely behave and perform during the interview. With this experience, you already get it. When I moved to the US, I was suddenly getting all these superstar resumes. I was like, wow, all these people are so good. this will be amazing interviews, and then you come, you listen to the candidate, you ask them questions, and you keep waiting. So when is it going to come, this moment of shining? When do they actually gonna express this experience they have on paper? And actually almost never came. And I realized later on I started focusing on it, and these people rarely lied on their resumes, but they just missed thing here or there. They would over color, exaggerate something, and then you realize, oh, they were working for I don't know, 3 years in Amazon, but then you realize they were just contractor working on some back office app for local warehouse or something of that matter, and that it was nothing relevant for the job I was interviewing them for.
This is something extremely relevant. So we were opening the office in Vancouver just a year ago, and that was one of the very first things that we were preparing all interviewers with. Like, expect to be amazed, and like, but the skills will be probably very similar, like on just kind of the pure engineering hard skills. So just kind of watch out for that. And this is, I don't still believe we've been able to bridge that gap, be able to interview effectively across the two regions.
I have actually a trick, yeah, and I fully agree with Tomáš. It happened to me 1,000 times. But there is a trick, and this is that you actually interview the US person, and then you ask him or her for references. And you really talk to those references, yeah, over the phone. It needs like 5 minutes. And you just ask one question. And you ask, like, if you were in my shoes, yeah, hiring John into my team, what should he improve first? And then if there is a gap on the phone line, yeah, you know that you should not hire John at all. And if he's giving you some like small reason, yeah, small kind of area of improvement, you can say, okay, thank you so much. But if there is a pause, don't hire John at all.
Very, very true. And I think one of the things that we picked up on when I was working in Vancouver was also, we started to introduce like questions around lateral thinking to make sure that you can actually think on your feet when faced with like really complicated problems. Because sure, everyone can have like it's very common that you have a shiny resume, but are you actually able to like be creative on your feet, solve like really, really hard problems, sometimes using unconventional means, but actually get the job done?
How do you interview for lateral thinking? What worked well?
We had, especially like when it came to engineers, we had some technical exercises that wasn't like easy to solve per se, but if you were creative, you could like usually come up with a smart solution for it. So like we primarily screened like through exercising or exercises, but that's where some of the best hires came in. Like they're like super creative and super smart, good thinkers.
For all of you, what's the most stressful thing for you in your responsibilities? How do you deal with the stress that comes from your job?
This is a tough question. I guess having so much responsibilities in a very small company, any decision I make can have a huge impact and can either push us forward or derail us. So I think my biggest stress that I'm feeling is actually of making wrong decisions, and I have to do a lot of them every day. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. That I have a good feeling that I can do decisions fast, but then I have this fear that I made wrong decisions.
I think for me, it comes down to the people, to make sure that the people that I have a responsibility for, that they are set up for success and they have everything that they need, but also that, again, that they're finding their job fulfilling. So I think that's one of the biggest stressors for me if I have something that's it might be or might not even be within my influence, but just someone that I'm responsible not doing okay. And the second thing is, if there is too much happening and you simply don't have time, and you like, sometimes everything can feel important and you need to take a step back to create clarity. It's like, is everything actually important? But like taking that step back is sometimes the most important thing to do, but can be really, really hard if the battle is roaring and every cell in your body just want to keep going. But for me, like, to relieve the stress. I have a family, so go spend time with family. Don't think about work, and that's usually also where all of a sudden like the solution to problems become a lot clearer than when you're staring directly at it.
For me, I'm a very calm person. It goes after my father, so I'm very, very hardly going into stress. And I have the same. Yeah, I relax with my kids, with my family, with sports and things like that. But there is one situation which makes me very stressful, and this is when I should fire some people. And when actually I'm getting some quotas, yeah, like Senta fire like 30% of the people. It happened to me actually in my career in the moment when we were putting two companies together. So I was this kind of cutter, 30%, maybe 35. And I think that this is a stressful situation because you could hardly understand not only whether the person will be like successful outside if you fire him, but also whether you are really making a good decision. Yeah, because it's very hard to predict what the new company will actually need in the capabilities, competencies, but also values. So when I do fire people, I am getting super stressful, and it goes even like into my bad dreams that I even dream about those people who I really fired in my past, and I'm still questioning myself whether it was a good decision. So those are hard decisions.
You would be a monster if you wouldn't be stressed for firing people.
If you're going to excuse me jumping back and forth between the topics, I remembered one question I wanted to ask around the last block, around the differences between America and Europe. We kind of established that people can have the same skill but can present it differently, and that typically people in North America are better than it at Europeans. Are there actually skills where either in North America or in Europe, there is a tendency, I don't know, is it the education, is it companies that they train them, that they focus them, and are there actually different skill set? Not focusing on engineers now, just engineering leaders, managers, do you feel there's a difference in what each of the locations provide in terms of the skills of the talent pool?
I think there is a big difference, and this difference comes from the size of the market. So I think that the US colleagues could actually afford to go deeper into their specialization because they have a guarantee that they will always find a niche market in this US market where they can deploy this kind of deep knowledge. And it could be plus and minus. What I see as a huge advantage of like Czech citizens and Czech engineers especially, I call it Ferda Mravenec. Yeah, we are really like, we can be jack of all trades. We are very adaptable, scalable, flexible in our thinking. And it can go into engineering, but it can go also into leadership, management and things like that. And I think it just comes because we are like a smaller market and we need to be more like universal.
One thing that I've realized coming back to Europe, I think in North America, especially like within high growth companies, there tend to be sort of a hive mind being present where there's almost always someone within like someone's network that have been exposed to the same class of problems before. Especially surrounding Silicon Valley, where there's like so many startups popping up, so many failing, only few succeed, but like there's just a high exposure to the same class of problems. That's both a really good thing to find solutions, but it's also a really, really bad thing to find solutions, because if you end up like asking someone for advice and you get the wrong one, well, that's not so good. Where some of the companies that I've seen here in Europe and like there's not necessarily the same hive mind, but that also means like there's a significantly more depth to the understanding of the theory behind it. And again, if you're able to like understand the deep theory and then like apply critical thinking, you can come up with a really, really awesome solution. That's actually something that I find like super exciting coming back and seeing that different perspective.
I agree with everything that was said. If I should add something that was not said yet, I would see one of the biggest differences, how the bigger market and general bigger options or more options to choose from can actually negatively impact the engagement with the company. I can see that Czech employees, Czech engineers are maybe more loyal, and they go more deeper into the product, and they bond closer with the company, and then they stick longer compared to the US. I remember then when we would go to the cafeteria in Silicon Valley, the discussions would mostly not be about technical issues we are having. It would be not about the product. It would be, oh, did you hear Facebook added sign-up bonus for everybody who joins? And they would be talking about the hottest startups and what kind of stock options package they offer, and who made which exit, and what kind of car did they buy, where did they buy a house for the stock option cash money they got from that. So it was different, little bit different mindsets from the perspective that people were always sitting just on the edge of the chair and looking for better opportunity to come, so they can hop on it. It's not happening here. It has downsides as well, but it's a difference.
Do you think, if I just stop for that for a moment, do you think you should adapt to that as an engineering manager or leader or a CTO? And should you work with that more? What is it? How does it require you to adapt, or do you just kind of ignore it?
There was honestly very little you can do. You can just try to make their everyday work as enjoyable as possible. Basically, it's a free market, so you have to be the better alternative. Sometimes when somebody comes with a 40% bigger offer, there's nothing you can do. But at least you need to have a good feeling that you did as much as you can to make their life as good as possible in the company.
I think there is one huge advantage which I see on Silicon Valley, and I'm trying to kind of bring it here, but it takes long. And this is that in US, especially in Silicon Valley, people will help you if you are actually part of their profession. So there is kind of a professional network, and in this professional network, you will get even help from your competitors. And it also happens if you are, for example, from the same university. Yeah, strong feeling, strong loyalty, yeah, to either your town of origin, university, professional. So not always only loyalty to your company, but also to your community. And I think it's beautiful. Yeah, I got so much help from people who are actually my competitors, and it was, I think, like my explanation is that it was because the market was so healthy. Yeah, so like large for everyone. But I also see another big advantage, and this is if you are like employing US citizens, they are not protected. Their contracts, yeah, you can basically do whatever you want with them. If they are not good, you can just like exchange them for other people. Yeah, the market is so flexible. Yeah, there is no protection. And even if you have a person in your company who is like going to maternity, it's like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, yeah, and then she's back. So very, I would say, adaptable market in terms of which people you can have, and plus the talent in Silicon Valley. Yeah, you just like recruit. It's so easy. Yeah, it's basically without any intentions, yeah, without any kind of big efforts, you will get the best people because they are just flying into Silicon Valley from all.
I think it's a matter of how much it's going to cost you.
Okay.
And it gets easier.
That's true. Yeah. I always work for like rich companies.
I've heard the opposite, right? So I'm going to let Deani answer if he has a follow-up, but that actually, as the job market was so hot, it was really hard to bring on talent, and like you had to fight for every single role, and you have armies of recruiters. Everybody has an experience with that, getting contacted. And essentially, it was an employee's market the past few years. And what I've actually heard from a lot of people is that people don't know how to deal with somebody not being a great fit, not performing well, because they know the talent is scarce. They can't hit their hiring goals. And so it's turning around a little bit right now. And I saw a question about the tough market. I'm not going to answer it right now, but like if somebody wants to catch chat with me after the meetup, be happy to answer that one. But that the managers and the leaders in engineering are not able to handle that they're actually worried of not having all the people in their team that they're supposed to have.
That's why recruiting is so important, and it's so important that when you do your interviews, that you screen for the right skills for what you need as a team, because what comes next, if it's not a good fit, is like it's a long process. Even if it like the laws of the United States and especially California is like less strict than Europe in general. I think a lot of companies there are still super cautious and afraid they might get sued if they let someone go. So like they do a lot of due diligence before they actually let someone go, even if like both partners think it's a bad fit. So I think the best thing companies can do is just invest into hiring to make sure that the people you bring on board is right. And I think that touches also on what Thomas said before, which like you can throw money at the problem, but at the end of the day, like you want people that can actually that will enjoy the work that you do. So if you sell them on the mission on what you do as a company, that's far more important than any compensation package that you might be able to throw at them, because there's almost always someone out there that's willing to pay more money, but money will only last so long. It's like if the mission is something that you're touched by and you can feel like you're actually motivated by that, that's worth so much more. But
I think I have a very relevant experience for this. I started with Pipedrive as a like first person here in Prague with the mission to hire a whole engineering team on the market when nobody knew the company. Pipedrive has a very good reputation in the home country in Estonia. Here nobody knew it except for salespeople, because it's a CRM for salespeople. So I was standing exactly in front of this question: how do I hire so many people? And immediately I got swarmed by agencies, hiring agencies, and they would tell me, the bigger one, they would tell me, we can give you 5 recruiters. They will source 3,000 people in 1 month. You can have so many resumes to choose from. And at the time, we intentionally decided to not do that. We wanted to grow at a healthy pace, and we started building the brand, well reputable companies doing, like Productboard, for instance. They invest. What you see here is a result of a whole team of people. There is a lot of effort put into this, and companies like Productboard and Pipedrive, they just want to show the market who they are, what to expect, what they can offer. And then it's much easier conversation for the recruiter once you actually reach out to a candidate who already can put you in a place, who can associate maybe some emotions, memories from meetups like these ones, and they can say, hey, this was actually a nice company. I had a good feeling about it, and they immediately are more prone to talk to this person. So I think this is true regardless of the situation on the market. You just need, if the market gets hotter and tougher, you just need to bump up your game. You need to improve your game, be even better of what you are doing, and simply be better than the competition. And so what I think the important part is let the person choose, implant the right thoughts, right emotions about your company, and then when they are ready to change job, maybe they will come up to you. This was actually the biggest satisfaction for all the effort we put at Pipedrive into employer branding. When somebody would come to interview and they would say, I came to this is my first interview, and I hope it will go well because I want to join Pipedrive. That was it happened seldom, I must admit. But when this happened, it felt so great because it meant that we did something good about employer branding.
Yeah, I think that's very similar to dream for us. Like, so you're going out of college and like, okay, there's this kind of public polls, like what are the top 3 companies you want to join? And in the Czech Republic, it always was Seznam, Čes, and Google, and kind of just these household names. But I'd like Productboard to be for engineers, like top 3. It's just like top 3? Top 1. It's just the...
I remember the frustration when I was reading these polls, and I was looking at where Czech student graduates want to work, and I saw Škoda, Česká pojišťovna, Česká spořitelna. I was like, oh my God, where am I? What am I competing against?
Don't go there.
I think it also changes with generations. So I see that Gen Z and also millennials, I think they actually tend to work for startups because I think on the market it's considered cool, sexy, and it's also considered to be part of the lifestyle. And so I think now we are in the moment when like young people tend to work for startups. And it goes against companies like Deloitte, where we might have some problems to recruit the best people.
But again, I think it comes down to like to the mission that you're selling and like what does it mean to join Deloitte, right? Like I have my own imagination, but that's ultimately like what brought me to Productboard, for instance, like, and also what brought me to Slack. Like, oh my God, this is changing the world of collaboration, and oh my God, Productboard is changing the world of product. And if you can find that mission, I think even like, and that's probably the change that corporations have to go through next is like slight rebranding or more branding around what does this actually mean for the world. But
I will make an ad for Deloitte, a commercial, personal experience. When it was my personal epiphany moment why big companies like Deloitte are important one, because you have an overview of the market. You are talking to so many partners, to so many customers. You can actually absorb what's there and make your own conclusions and work with this information. And the example I want to give is when Pipedrive was going through full exit and all the employees were cashing out their stock options. We've been advised by a local tax advisor company who said, by Czech law, you have to tax it this way, and it was all, of course, not the best way for us, the employees. So actually, it fought really hard so we can get a second opinion, and we actually hired Deloitte, and the people from Deloitte came and they said, we have been through this for the 10 different companies, and even though the law is not very exact about how this can be done, for all of these companies we did it this way and it worked out and nobody paid any fine. If there was not company like Deloitte, we would have only the local opinion, and we would all ended up paying much more taxes for our stock options. So that's end of the commercial.
Thanks so much. And I will also explain why I actually went to Deloitte, and it was like a similar story because I had Deloitte in New York, and it was basically my partner in crime every time when I wanted to kind of prepare the good strategy with all the financials here for the board. I went to Deloitte. So then once I decided I will return to my home country, Deloitte was on my radar as the company who was really capable, friendly, fresh, young, and things like that. So I think those connections, as Deani mentioned, really work. Most probably we are not thinking about it, but we are having them in our instincts.
Going back to the questions from the audience, somebody was asking, how do you understand the moment we need to change strategy and move in a different direction rather than putting even more effort into it? So cut your losses, essentially. And instead of answering it hypothetically, when did you, in your career or with your teams, not do that? When did you power through when everything was telling you to stop?
I can give one example. When I worked for headquarters in Hewlett-Packard, we were actually having two CRM systems, and they were actually competitive in one company. And why it happened? Because there were actually two companies acquired, putting merged together, and each company was actually bringing this CRM system with it. So, and you can't imagine the discussions around those two systems because there were people who were protecting both of those systems. And yes, we made a bad decision because of politics, not because of some ratio. And even now, after 10 years, we are seeing the consequences.
I finally come up with a good idea. And it comes back to my Microsoft times, and it relates a little bit what Senta was saying at the beginning, that in a big company, you need to be part of the flow. The moment you're not part of the flow, you should step back into the flow. When you find yourself in a team that is not part of the general strategy, you will be diminished. And at the time, I just didn't know this. Yeah, I hope I could give myself this advice, but it was I don't know 6 years back, and we were working on a greenfield innovative product, and I was telling everybody I'm working at a startup inside a big company. It's a really great and sexy idea, and we put a lot of effort and energy into it. And I tried really, really hard to make it work. But what I see from today, it was not just part of the general strategy. So we did not get the support we needed from other teams. So we were all the time swimming against the stream, and that's very tiring, exhausting. And that was the reason why I left the company at the end. Knowing what I know now, I would have probably given up sooner, and I would just go to my manager and says, "This clearly doesn't make sense. Let's work on something that is part of the flow."
I think one thing that stands out here in my past is understanding when is the time right to fix an issue. You might be running into an issue that to you seems like a big thing, but you don't have the full perspective on the organization. So you might push really hard for hey, we have to solve this problem that is bugging me, my team, or my organization. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not the most important thing to solve for the entire company, but for you, it's the most important thing. So to understand the bigger context of the company, I failed to do this in my past and tried to solve some things that the time was not right. It was still a problem, but the time was just not right. And when you try to push harder because you still really care and you want to solve this problem, it usually doesn't lead anywhere. And it certainly didn't in my case. And that's again, step back into the flow. And then I could maybe looking back, hindsight is 2020, but with a few pointed questions, I could probably have better understood why. Yeah, the timing also has to be right.
I have another kind of message to give you, and this would be: don't be shy. Yeah, if you feel that your product line is, for example, kind of not on the flow anymore, then, and it happened to me a couple of times, I am an assertive person, and it happened to me that I basically sent some emails to people who were in the hierarchy, like much higher up than me, just asking them simple question, which I didn't got the answer from my upper level managers. So I kind of overstepped. And of course, you need to do it smartly and politely, and you can't overuse this overpass. But in the moment when you feel my product line is strategically on the kind of back line, and we are kind of losing the focus, I think this is the moment when you can even help your management, because maybe they are too political, and you can just politely ask to some kind of really big Vic, and you can ask him could you share the strategy for next 2 years in my competence area? And it typically happened to me that never those people say no. Typically they, of course, copy your direct manager, so that you might be in trouble. But at the same time, you get what you need. And typically then you basically solve the barrier, which I typically, and I think Tomáš has the same, was having some instincts that our product line is basically put aside. I had the instinct, I checked with the upper managers, and sometimes it works, sometimes not. But I would definitely give you the advice, don't be shy. Typically people in the organizations are nicer and kinder than you imagine they are. And typically they want to help people who have good intentions. Don't misuse this behavior to get some kind of just personal benefit. You need to really do it on behalf of the team. And if you do it with really good intentions on behalf of the team, typically it comes back to you as a kind of promotion, maybe even. But don't do it because of the promotion. Do it because of the well-being of the team and of this product line.
Mm-hmm. I just want to add a +1 on that. Since I have experience from different levels of leadership, the higher you are, the less visibility you have what's happening below. So doing like this can be called managing up. Like doing this managing up can actually be very helpful because you provide more information, more clarity to the people who may like it otherwise. So it's definitely not a bad thing, and managing up is a very legitimate line of activities for any leader, especially in the bigger companies.
Sometimes I talk with managers in my team that you don't know who you're going to end up working with, or you do not know who's going to end up working on your team. And so sometimes, like, when you fight too hard for your team and like at the expense of others, it's going to come back to you. So, oh yeah, we're merging, and you're doing really well, and so we'd like you to take care of this. And then, oh, this other team is now reporting to you, and you have trouble ahead.
I have another kind of advice, and this is that Prague is really beautiful and attractive. And you can use from time to time the invitation to your kind of highest managers and ask them to come to Prague and to deliver some masterclass. And it could be the masterclass in engineering, but it could be also masterclass in leadership, whatever. Yeah, like select the specialization, and doing so, you basically plant the seeds in the organization. They come because Prague is beautiful, or Istanbul, or Athens. Yeah, basically our region is beautiful. They come, and going back to headquarters, they actually have like much bigger understanding, what is happening there and what is the potential, of this beautiful region. So do it. Don't be shy. Again, be active.
I'll let you finish, Deani.
No, it's just reminded of one exercise that I've seen in the past practiced by some managers, which is also when you go to a team, and you can do this both for like the things that's not working, but also for the like potential or the opportunities out there that you might not like even realize. You can gather like a group of people in a room and just say, hey, I'm not gonna speak, but I'm gonna let each and every one of you like speak about the opportunities that you think we're not pursuing right now, but we probably should if we knew about them. But like, what is some of like the big opportunities or higher leverage things out there that we might not even be talking about? I'm not going to comment on anything. I'm just going to take notes, and when everyone has spoken, I'm going to leave. And so there's no judging or anything, but just this is an excellent way of like gathering insights on opportunities out there. And I've seen like this work out really well in the past. That just came to think of it.
So we're coming up on time, and a lot of it has been about advice, about your personal experiences. We have one last question from the audience, and that is going back to the beginning of your journey. What advice would you give to the younger self?
I would just repeat what Senta said. Don't be shy. Comparing myself before the US experience and after the US experience, my biggest realization was that I was always waiting for somebody to notice me, for somebody to reward me. And I was just trying hard and look, I'm here, I'm really good, do something about it. Because when you praise yourself, it's perceived in our culture, it's perceived as a negative habit, negative quality. But if you do it in a subtle way, and you just maybe rise your good skills, your qualities that are objective, then it's just part of being on the market, being on the job market. So that would be my biggest advice. Don't be shy, and if you feel you have the quality, just do it, sell it, be your own salesman or woman.
I think for me, two things stand out. It's definitely fortune favors the bold, so don't be afraid to like take big leaps or go after your goals, even if they might be bold or audacious or seem unreachable to others. So just go after it and believe in yourself. And then second to that, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Like nobody became good at anything the first time they tried it. The best people out there like failed more times than anyone else. That's basically how they became really, really good. So like, don't be afraid to fail, make mistakes, as long as you learn from them, and pursue like your boldest ideas. It will pay off. Might take some time, but it will pay off.
So I have two messages. One is the message to ladies, female, in this room, and this is don't be sad about going back from maternities and repeating basically all those kind of step-by-steps in your career. It just happens. And have lots of kids. Yeah, my regrets are just that I have just 2 kids. I should have had more. And then my second advice is identify who in the company are really the strategists and magicians. I don't know if you know this theory that actually leaders are falling into like 7 different categories, if you will. And those strategic leaders and magicians are actually those who are pushing the company forward. Find them, make friends with them, understand what is in their head, and help them to push the company forward.
That is actually my personal experience. And when we were talking about the being in the core business versus the future or prospective business, there's like a metaphor, and it sounds very pragmatic, very cynical, but like ride the tailcoats of your boss on the way up. And what it means is it's not find the best politician, but find actually the best manager, connect to them, and then like grow with them. And then you usually want to find like one person, just one level, a few years more experience than you, and just kind of follow them. And that can usually be like a really, really fast elevator, not just in the company or in a career ladder, but just you personally. That is usually the best way to learn and grow.
And if you do, always cover the back of your manager, so no surprises, which are coming not from you, but from some others. So always prepare him or her for the worst case scenarios, so be honest with him or her, and then help him or her how you want people would be helping you, because it will come back into your career like later. If you kind of push people up, then they will also push you up, and the people are actually seeing this behavior and they behave similar.
That's it for today. I would like to thank Senta, Tomáš, Deani for the wonderful time. I'd like to thank everybody for the thoughtful questions. I will have one ask for the audience, and if the team can help me on bringing down the beamer and the slides, our single ask for today is feedback. So we would like to know what you'd like to hear, what you hope to hear, but we didn't talk about. Are there speakers you believe we should invite and you'd love to hear from? And so that is my only ask for today. If you can give us feedback, we're constantly evolving this format based on this. We're reading it, and there's actually a prize. So we're handing out Inspired, a book by Marty Kagan that we hand out to new joiners. It's a really good way to quickly learn about like the fundamental way, how do we want to build a product and how we believe digital companies should build products. But the feedback is the more important part for me. Thank you, Senta. Thank you, Tomáš. Thank you, Deani. It was a wonderful time with you. So we're going to stick around. There should still be food. There are drinks. There is beer. Connect with people. Try to open little groups. Be inclusive. If you feel if there is somebody you know, bring them into every group. I'll be sticking around. Very happy to answer the questions about how tough the market is going to be this year. There's a lot of other questions out there that all of our guests today have also a lot to talk to. So let's give them just a minute. But thank you, and see you next time.